Welcome to our YouTube channel, where wisdom meets inspiration. In this channel, we share valuable insights to help you become the best version of yourself. Our content is designed to uplift your spirit and enrich your life. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to stay connected with this incredible journey. Click the subscribe button below.
Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmayedhi Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Tena Mam Pahi Nityam Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. O Lord, reach us through and through and protect us forever by thy compassionate face. Om, peace, peace, peace. What is the significance of coming into the Sampradaya? Sampradaya in Sanskrit means a tradition. Many people don't like the word tradition. People think that tradition is something which is fossilized and that we have to revolt against tradition. We need something new. But there is nothing in the world which is new. Only the old thing, as Christ said, the old wine is put in a new bottle and you repackage the whole thing to suit the necessity of the age, the need of the age. We call it in Sanskrit Yuga Prayojana. Yuga is the age, Prayojana is the need. This was the first chapter of Swami Sharadanandaji's famous magnum opus called the Sri Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasanga, originally translated by Swami Jagadananda as the Ramakrishna, the Great Master, and recently retranslated by Swami Chetananda as Sri Ramakrishna, the Divine Play. Once again, the old wine in the new bottle. So the human mind always looks at truth in different ways, different perspectives. And extraordinary minds, scintillating minds, powerful minds, which can quickly move from one position to another with a lightning speed, they are capable of looking at truth and expounding truth in innumerable ways that the ordinary mind gets totally flabbergasted. Swami Vivekananda is one such, and before him was Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. So Arjuna repeatedly asked, "Oh Krishna, please tell me, just now you spoke about jnana as being the greatest, but why are you pushing me into this terrible work, war?" Sri Krishna smiled and said, "All right, I'll tell you." And then told him something which confused Arjuna more. Then the 5th chapter, again Arjuna comes up, "Just now you said this, but you are saying something else." Swami Vivekananda once spoke about a particular aspect of truth, but one of the listeners said, "But Swamiji, you just said just the opposite yesterday." He smiled, "Oh, that was yesterday." Nivedita once tried to argue with Swamiji, but she couldn't. Almost in tears she said, "Swamiji, you know what I say is right, but I can't argue with you." Swamiji smiled and said, "All right, I'll take up your point of view and then smash my own." Then he smiled and said, "You see, we belong to 7 generations of barristers." The idea being that truth lends itself to innumerable interpretations. Every one of these interpretations is true, equally true as any other interpretation. This was a new kind of message which Ramakrishna came to give. Normally what we think is a particular interpretation is a kind of a superior interpretation. Since you can't grasp this interpretation, I'll give you something which is lower for you to practice. So this is called in Sanskrit Adhikari Bheda. Adhikari, eligibility of the aspirant, Bheda, difference. You can't come up to the level of Advaita, you can't come up to the level of Jnana, so I'll give you something which is very easy to practice. As if you're an inferior kind of aspirant. So the idea of inferiority or superiority about interpretation of truth just doesn't exist. This has been corroborated later on after Ramakrishna passed away. Swami Vivekananda also passed away in 1902. Just 3 years later, as you know, a young lad who was working in a patent office in Germany came up with a remarkable perception about truth. His name, as you know, is Albert Einstein. He said, all that you speak about is only relative. What is absolute is something which can't be really defined. And he also said, the one absolute, invariable, constant in nature is the velocity of light in vacuum. So in a sense, Einstein's theory is not theory of relativity, but a theory of invariance. Because it is nothing which is invariant, what you call relative will lose its meaning. Sri Ramakrishna spoke about it in a very simple language by saying, all the zeros add up to zeros, but if you have one before it, each of the zeros have tremendous value. So it works both ways. 0 and 0 and 0 and 0 adds up to 0. But you have 1, each of the zeros increases the value of the total figure. In exactly the same way, the 1 without the zeros also has no meaning. So the 1 depends on the zeros for its value, and the zeros depend on the 1 for the value. So the zeros are the world, what the Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter will call as the Kshetra, and the 1 is the Kshetrajna, which is spirit, which is God, which is the Atman, which is Brahman, by whatever name called, the unchangeable, invariant substance. So the invariant on the one hand, and constantly changing relative on the other, both of them together form the totality of truth. This is a perception which Sri Ramakrishna gave to Swami Vivekananda, in turn he gave it to the whole world. The perception is that what you call change in the relative world and what you call the invariant in the spiritual world, both of them together form the whole. Don't reject the one and choose the other. A worldly person rejects God as something which is unseen, perhaps unknowable. Don't waste your time chasing something which you really do not see. A godly person, a spiritual person, rejects the world and chooses God. See, Ramakrishna says, don't reject anything at all. He has a beautiful example. You know, bale fruit, or the vilva in India. So this fruit, if you want to eat that fruit, you peel off the skin, you take away the seeds and take only the flesh. But if somebody asks you what is the weight of this fruit, you take the total weight. You can't reject the seeds, you can't reject the skin. So Ramakrishna says, you will make a mistake if you reject a part of this fruit, because the totality of the weight will not be reflected if you reject a part of it. So nothing can be rejected. That's Ramakrishna's idea. In the world we normally see why certain things happen we do not really know. Certain events happened in the course of the last few days. So everybody says, why, how can this happen? So the counter question is, why can't this happen? So we do not know why certain things happen. Miss Josephine MacLeod, the famous disciple of Swami Vivekananda, American disciple, who chose to call herself a friend of Vivekananda, she wrote in a letter, perhaps to Nivedita, she says there, the world refuses to be cast in the individual's pattern. And this gives us a chance to become free. We always think that this has to happen in this particular way. This is how I perceive this. You perceive it differently, But God smiles in a corner and says, I perceive it totally differently, wait for my verdict. So we do not really know. And therefore, to keep yourself open to the events unfolding before you, without expectation, and without saying this has to happen this way, is the way to move forward with regard to perception of truth. So Sri Ramakrishna following Swami Vivekananda therefore said, the one and the many are one and the same substance perceived by the same mind in different attitudes and different times. Either the one is real or the many is real. The many is the world and the one is God, or the supreme reality. So how do you say the many has emanated from the one? There could be different perspectives. The famous Advaitic perspective of Shankaracharya would say, the many is only an apparent manifestation of the one. Actually, the one has not become the many. Apparent? Is it false? No, it is not exactly false. It is almost false. How did this happen? I do not really know. If you push me farther, I will say, because of a mysterious power called Maya or Ajnana. Then you ask, what is Ajnana? I don't know what is Ajnana. If you did not know what is Ajnana, you could have as well said, I do not know how the one became the many. This is the position of Ramanuja. Ramanujacharya, the famous Visishtadvaitika philosopher, he said, you could as well say, I do not know how the one became the many, but you see the many as well as the one. So the human perception is that the one and the many are contradictory. Either the one is real or the many is real. Both can't be real. Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda came and said, both can be real at the same time. 1900, just the beginning. How? When the avatar comes, when the God comes as man, Swami Vivekananda said, sciences, arts, music, everything flourishes. Exactly some years after Ramakrishna passed away, and a couple of years before Vivekananda passed away, 1900, Max Planck came up with an idea of the quantum theory of light. All of us know this. And that was and soon after came the discovery of de Broglie, in which he said, if light can display particle characteristics, why not particle also display wave characteristics? That led to a revolutionary discovery of the wave-particle dualism. So what was the philosophical implication? Schrödinger, the famous Nobel laureate, who was the originator of the wave mechanics, in his Nobel lecture, acceptance speech, makes a very interesting point. He says, what has wave mechanics philosophically contributed? The paradigm of either or has been replaced by both and. So look at this statement carefully. Either this is true or that is true. Either the one is true or the many is true. If the one is true, many is false. If the many is true, one is false. Either this or that, you pick. He says that kind of a paradigm has been completely given up because of the advent of quantum mechanics or the wave mechanics, wave-particle dualism. And now the paradigm is both this and that. Remember the first page of the Gospel of Ramakrishna, when M encountered this tremendous truth. Very innocently, Ramakrishna asked him, do you believe in God with form or God without form? M, the great intellectual of that time, completely got perplexed. He tells there, he himself records, if God is with form, how can he be without form? If he is without form, how can he be with form? How can both of them be true at the same time? So Ramakrishna implied with this question, do you believe in this or that? That means this and that, both of them could be equally true at the same time. Ramakrishna did not know quantum mechanics. But how the perceptions come? The philosophical perception have a spiritual implication. percolating into the world of science and revolutionizing the entire conception of man about the nature, about space, time and matter and the universe. Soon came theory of relativity. These are two outstanding revolutions in the world of thought in the beginning of the 20th century, 1900, 1905, and 10 years later Einstein followed with the general theory of relativity, 1915. Why I mention this? Because the inclusiveness of perception and the variety of manifestations in which truth can appear and the interpretations of truths which are equally valid, acceptable to different minds and different times, this has come to stay. Unless we accept this, we will be living in a world which we will divide and there will be more and more conflict. This has come to stay, the whole philosophical perception, the spiritual perception. Now the Ramakrishna Sampradaya, the tradition of Ramakrishna is a tradition of inclusion. Don't exclude anybody. Sri Sharada Devi, the holy spouse and the helpmate in the mission of Ramakrishna, the illiterate lady who did not know quantum mechanics or relativity, she very innocently and very lovingly said, the whole world is your own. Embrace everybody in extending your arms. Take everybody in your arms and know that all are your very own. The idea of inclusion has come to stay. And Swami Vivekananda philosophically put it and powerfully enunciated the Parliament of Religions by saying that in our Sanskrit language, the word exclusion is untranslatable. There is no equivalent word in Sanskrit, according to Swami Vivekananda, to express the word exclusion. We not only tolerate, but we accept all religions to be true. It is not only toleration, condescendingly accepting other man's existence, not living and letting live, but positively accepting the other man's existence as equally valid as my own. Swami Vivekananda therefore said, it is not toleration but universal acceptance. Once again it flows from this philosophy. So Sri Ramakrishna therefore, scaling the heights of the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, came down as it were. Actually there is no coming down or going up, but certain words we have to use, and lived in the relative world, saturated with the perception of the ultimate reality as one, informed by it, and living his life constantly perching in that one reality. You ascend to the highest, what Shankara would call the Nirguna Brahman, qualityless Brahman, formless Brahman, in which everything is lost as it were. Ramakrishna's own story, a salt doll went to measure the depths of the ocean. What a powerful statement. What will happen to the doll, everybody knows. It completely got lost in the ocean, its form is gone. But he adds there in the Gospel, which is not in the Gospel recorded by M, but M himself translated some portions of the Gospel from Bengali to English. Swami Atmapriyanandaji of revered memory, he got this original book which went out of print, reprinted from Chennai Math, called it the Condensed Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That contains many original statements attributed to Ramakrishna which are not found in the Gospel which we know. There is a statement there. Salt doll went to measure the depths of the ocean. It got completely merged, dissolved in the ocean. And by the grace of the Guru, by a command of God, the Divine Mother's will, it again regained its form. A ship on its way, and it got into the ship, and went to the other shore. You know who is that salted doll? That salted doll is the avatar, the incarnation of God, who completely merges in the divine, infinite, nirguna nirakara, qualityless Brahman, and comes back to this world of relativity, as it were, with a transformed, transmuted, chastened kind of ego, which is not ego at all, so that he can go to the world. Sri Ramakrishna spoke about it in the Gospel by saying, Shankaracharya retained the ego of knowledge. Chaitanya retained the ego of devotion so that he can serve society. This kind of ego doesn't hurt anybody. It is just like a burnt rope. It retains the form of the rope, but it can't bind. So you call it the abhasa. Abhasa means the appearance. It appears as a rope, but it can't bind anymore. So there is a mysterious phenomenon by which an incarnation, a man of God, who has been commissioned by the divine to do good to the world, can merge completely, absolutely in the infinite, but come back to the relative world, as it were, and live there, poised in that infinite, not compromising the absolute realization which he has had, and passing on that realization to the world of appearance. This is a mystery which is not very logically formulatable. You can't logically formulate this. You may ask the question, how is it the person who has realized the absolute and the infinite God are completely merged, come back with the same form? If he really got merged in the infinite, he gets lost. If he did not, halfway he comes back. This is the theory of the Bodhisattva in Buddhism. Bodhisattva is a half-awakened Buddha who, on the way to attaining nirvana, suddenly realizes that he has to do good to the world and he has to lead hundreds of human beings to the shore of nirvana. So he sacrifices his own nirvana, comes back and leads people. He is half awakened because if he are fully awakened, he can't come back. If he is unawakened, he can't lead anybody. So this is a paradox in religion. What is the paradox? You ask a question, are these great incarnations, the men of God, people who have fully and completely realized the infinite and the absolute God? Yes or no? If you say yes, how is it that they come back and help the world? If they are caught merged in the absolute, they can't come back and help the world. If you say no, they have no authority to teach. If they had not attained the highest realization, they can't come back and teach. So how do you solve the problem? The problem is solved by saying, although they got merged in the infinite and the absolute, by a mysterious way, by the will of God, they can come back and teach. Shankaracharya gives a wonderful explanation for this. The proof of why these men of God, although they get merged, can come back and teach. This method of proof is known in mathematics as the reductio ad absurdum. All of us have studied some mathematics in school. The method is very interesting. The Greek logicians developed this. Suppose a theorem is given to you. A statement is given. Prove this statement. So how do you go about proving this? You assume that the statement is not true. Then develop the consequences. 1, 2, 3. Suppose you end up in absolute absurdity by assuming that the statement is not true. You will go back and say, since the assumption of the falsity of this statement leads you to an absurd consequence, this statement originally ought to have been true. This is reducing to an absurdity, reductio ad absurdum. So Shankaracharya follows this method. So what is the statement? Men of realization, men of God, the Avatara Purushas, the incarnations of God, the teachers of mankind, the saviors of humanity, these great teachers are completely and fully realized souls. They have got the highest blast of realization. Prove this statement. Then he says, I will take the method of reductio ad absurdum. Assume that this statement is not true. Then what will be the consequence? The consequence would be all the religious literature in the world will be the productions of people who have not got the full realization. Because if they had got the full realization, they wouldn't be able to speak. They wouldn't be able to teach. That means you enter into a position which in Sanskrit is called Shastra Anarthakya Prasanga. Anartha means meaninglessness. Anarthakya is meaninglessness. Prasanga is the context. Shastra is the religious scripture. So end up by saying the entire body of religious and spiritual literature of all religions in the whole world are absolutely meaningless, which is a terrible consequence, which is unacceptable, and therefore Shankara says these people must have realized. So how does it happen is a mystery which we do not know. Sri Ramakrishna says, God commands them to remain in a state in which they have the full blast of the highest realization intact. At the same time, out of compassion, they are able to take care of the world. So their minds are poised in a situation in which they have the transcendent realization fully informing them and illuminating their consciousness. At the same time, transmitting this realization to the relative world. This position is called the Bhava Mukha. This is an important addition of Ramakrishna Vivekananda to the world of spiritual literature. Ramakrishna, of course, was not a philosopher, as you know. He was not a metaphysician, he was not a philosopher, he was not a theoretician. He was a simple child of God who cried and cried to God to know the truth about God. He was a scientist par excellence. He did not say that God existed or did not exist. He said, I am asked to worship this image of God. Mother, are you really there in that image? If you are not, I shall not worship you. If you are, I should be able to see you. How? Why? Because it is recorded Kamalakanta saw you, Ramprasad saw you. If somebody at some point of time has seen you, I should be able to see you now. That is science. Science is based on the idea of replicability. If some scientist has performed an experiment at some time, somewhere in this world, that should be replicated anywhere, anytime, and the same result should follow. If it doesn't, it is not science. Exactly the procedures Ramakrishna followed. Ramprasad saw you, Kamalakanta saw you, and therefore I should be able to see you. If I can't see you, if you don't exist, I shall not worship you. If you do, I should be able to see you. So he cried, and ultimately he had the vision of God, as you know. Now, after having the vision of God, Ramakrishna was greatly tempted to completely get merged in God. This comes to you all, everybody. So we say we should do good to the world. We should be compassionate to the world. Renounce your own mukti, Swami Vivekananda thundered. Who cares for mukti or bhakti? Go and serve everybody as children of God. Swami Atmapriyanandaji, one of our greatest religious leaders, he wittily says, see, don't be carried away with this rhetoric of Swami Vivekananda. First attempt to realize God. When Vivekananda said, I don't care for my mukti, remember, he had had it already. This was corrected by Swami Brahmananda. The Sampradaya, I am coming to that. So people were carried away with Swamiji's rhetoric. I always tell people, so don't be carried away by Swami Vivekananda. Think about what Narendranath did. See, Swamiji did not fall from the skies and go to the Parliament of Religions in Chicago. how much he cried for God, how much of sadhana he performed. In Kashipur, when Sri Ramakrishna was intensely ill, he made Narendra perform so many different kinds of spiritual practices, inch by inch by inch. How many different sadhanas, how many realizations he had. He himself says, how many things I have seen. I have seen these mantras and the various letters of gold. Suddenly once he came and said, I saw an inverted triangle of light. Sri Ramakrishna smiled and said, he was the past master of everything. He said, good, you have seen Brahma Yoni. So Brahma Yoni darshan hoyeche. I have also seen this. What is more, I saw this triangle giving birth to innumerable universes. Now, perform this, perform that. People used to be amazed. His direct disciples, some of them who were practicing along with Swami Vivekananda, said, came to Sri Ramakrishna, how amazing! How much of Viveka Vairagya, how much of dispassion, how much of Vyakulata, intense longing for God. We are amazed at Narendranath's spiritual practices and the realizations. So Ramakrishna smiled and said, yes, it is true. How wonderful, isn't it? But compared to what passed through this, it is not even a small portion of what happened to me. So imagine what Ramakrishna was. So he went through all that. At the end of it, he was crying for a nirvikalpa samadhi. Give me the highest samadhi in which I will be absorbed. So Ramakrishna once called Naren. Hey, what do you want to tell me? I want to be absorbed in samadhi. No, but then to come and eat something. You know why he said that? I was thinking, why does, if you are in samadhi, why do you want to come back and eat something? You'll be absorbed there. Why he said that was because unless you came back to the relative world, you will not know the beauty of the samadhi by contrast. You are always absorbed in it. You are always in an air-conditioned room. You will not know what scorching the sun is outside. So now and then you come to the relative world and then say, oh, relative world is so terrible. I can't again go back. Sri Ramakrishna chided him. You are a person of mean intellect. You are so small-minded. I thought you would be a huge banyan tree giving shelter to thousands of scorching souls, people who are suffering in this world, who are scorched by the worldliness. And you want to be in samadhi yourself? I will show you a state higher than even samadhi. All this rhetoric is all right, but he had to give him samadhi. Swami Vivekananda got it. And when he came to Sri Ramakrishna and bowed down, Ramakrishna said, mercilessly, see, be very careful of Ramakrishna, he is so merciless. He takes away things which he gives you. Then he says, now the mother has shown you everything, this realization will be locked up in a box and the key shall be with me. When you finish my work, I will unlock and give it back to you. This is one occasion in which Ramakrishna used the word my. You carefully look at the biography. Sri Ramakrishna never used the word I or mine. He says mother's work. Here he said my work, identifying himself with the mother. You finish my work, then I'll give back the key and go back. Till the end of his life, Swami Vivekananda struggled and struggled to go back to that state. You can see the rest. See, when you read Vivekananda's life and letters, sometimes people get confused. He writes a letter in 1900, 18th April, when Miss MacLeod says it's the best letter Swamiji ever wrote. Behind my work was ambition. Behind my lover's personality. Behind my leadership was the thirst for power. Now they are vanishing and I drift. People said, why could Swamiji say this? After all, Joe, I am only the boy who used to listen with rapt wonderment to the wonderful words of Ramakrishna under the banyan at Dakshineshwar. That is my true nature. Work, activities, doing good, and so forth are all superimposition. Now they are vanishing and I drift. Now only the voice of the Master is calling. I come, Lord, I come. Let the dead bury the dead and follow thou me. I come, my beloved Lord, I come. Work is becoming tasteless. The glamour is off life. Only the voice of the Master is calling. The allusion to the life of Saint Peter. He was Simon before he came to Jesus, as you know. His father's name was Jonas. Christ called him, Simon, son of Jonas, I have need of thee. Then he said, Oh Lord, I am only a poor fisherman. What can I do to you? Thou shalt remain a fisherman always. Henceforth thou shalt fish for men. You will catch men and bring them to me. His father was just dead. I'll bury my father and come. Then Christ said, Let the dead bury the dead, follow thou me. And Simon followed Jesus the Christ. The remarkable book on Simon's is a novel by Lloyd C. Douglas. The book is called The Big Fisherman. Such a remarkable book. There he says, and Simon followed Jesus. In exactly the same way, Swami Vivekananda says, I have done all this. I want to go back to that state when I remained the child of Sri Ramakrishna. Till the end, he was struggling to open that box, but the box wouldn't open. He wanted to break it to smashes, but he couldn't. Somebody told him, there is a duplicate key available with Pavhari Baba. Ran there. You have a key. Pavhari Baba, he couldn't get it. Came back, finally had to surrender. Sri Ramakrishna smashed him fully to surrender so that he will do his work. You see, when you taste God in whatever form, this world will become absolutely insipid. You can't do good work anymore. Doing goods and taking care of people and serving others are all superimpositions which will appear totally insipid. We are doing all this because we have not tasted the bliss of God. So Swami Brahmananda used to say, you do not know. A great treasure house is within you. You do not know how much of joy is within. Aha! Sometimes great compassion, tears used to say, I beg of you, please unlock the great treasure within. Try for a few years, a couple of years. And then if you don't get anything, come back and slap me if you like. But you do not know how much you are missing. Now is the time. Come on, be up and doing. If you read the Eternal Companion, the teachings of Brahmananda, you will see with so much of compassion and so much of feeling he tells all of us. Unlock the great treasure within. Swami Vivekananda was made to work and the realization was blocked to him. The firewall, in the computer language you say, if you don't want our children to go to certain sites, they'll say firewall, they block it. You can't, access denied. So Swamiji wanted access, but access was denied to him. And he was not made to understand his own greatness. He was unconsciously great, and Sri Ramakrishna did not allow him to understand his own greatness. If he did, he would run away. Have you ever seen in the spiritual history of humanity a guru, the spiritual master, preceptor, praying intensely that the disciple should be put in bondage? What does the guru do? He releases him. Khandana bhavabandhana. This is Swamiji's own statement. He cuts the bondage of this world. But here is a strange guru praying for a strange disciple that the disciple should be put in bondage so that he can work for the avatar. But he gave him the highest and afterwards withdrew. To all the direct disciples, the whole Sampradaya is based on Brahma Vidya. Swami Atmapriyanandaji, we have heard, used to say that this Ramakrishna Parampara is Brahma Vidya Sampradaya. All of us have registered our name in the Brahma Vidya Sampradaya, starting from the Rishis of the old, the Vedic Rishis, up to the present age. What is the difference between the disciples of Ramakrishna and all of us who are struggling to get the highest realization? The fundamental difference which we should always remember, these great disciples were trying to keep their minds down. That was their sadhana. The entire spiritual practice, how the mind can be brought down so that they can do good to us. If you read the lives of course, Vivekananda and Sarada we leave out. Thakur, of course, is beyond our reach. All the time he used to be in samadhi. Once he said to the disciples, "Today I am going to tell you the entire spiritual truth. I will unlock the treasure and broadcast it to you. Come on." He started describing his realization, and after some time again went to deep samadhi. He couldn't come back. Then he cried, said, "Oh mother, please allow me to tell them the highest truth." Mother wouldn't allow. He said, "I am unable to talk to you because mother doesn't allow." That means the mind is soaring high all the time. The struggle is to keep the mind down. In our case, the mind is constantly going down. How the mind can be taken up through sadhana is our effort. The small difference, if you understand, everything falls in place. I struggled for years to find out how this can be matched. Then it is very simple. Their sadhana is how to keep the mind down so that they can do good to the world. Our sadhana is how to take the mind up. Swami Vivekananda, when he was in the West, particularly in USA, he was always almost in samadhi. Whenever he used to sit for meditation, he will go into samadhi. Constantly he had to pull his mind down. He used to get in a tram car and overshoot his destination. And he has to go to the last point. And the conductor used to say, "Where did you want to get down? Get down." He said, "Oh, you have overshot. Oh, take the other car and go back." He used to take another car back, again overshoot, go to the destination the other end. He used to go back and forth several times. These are not stories. The moment he entered there, something happened to him. He was in a different world. The pull of the other world was so strong, you can't really resist it. He was trying to pull his mind down, but it became impossible beyond a point. When he used to teach in Thousand Island Park, or when he used to give lectures to people, hundreds of people are sitting there listening to him. Swami Vivekananda himself admitted the power of his lecture, the spiritual impulse which he gave to them, the listeners, was so much that their kundalinis got awakened. Ordinary people who did not know anything about God. And he says, they were not prepared for it. And therefore, when the kundalini came back and struck at the Mooladhara, all kinds of bad impulses were roused in them. On one occasion, suddenly in the midst of a lecture, Swamiji stopped and ran away. So many people were interpreting so many ways. Was he not well? Some mischievous people said, "You see, he has memorized the whole lecture, he forgot it in the middle." All kinds of people say so. But Swamiji himself said, "You know why I ran away? Suddenly a tremendous wave of power was overwhelming me. I could realize I had so much of spiritual power. I could take every one of the members of the audience and then push them to the infinite." Then I realized my philosophy of Vedanta would not allow that. Everybody has to work out his own karma and then struggle through. Then I resisted the impulse and simply walked away. Such a spiritual power Ramakrishna had poured into him. In Kashipur, he poured the entire power into him. Next came Swami Brahmananda, as you know. Brahmananda was a man always absorbed in samadhi. How he could manage this great organization is a great mystery. He didn't want to. Swami Vivekananda knew this boy, it was his bosom friend, was Brahmananda. He used to call him Abhinna Hridayeshu. In Bengali he used to write. Only to Rakhal he used this particular phrase. Abhinna means non-different. Hridaya, the hearts have united into one. We call them Harihara Atma. In India, Hari and Hara, Hari is Vishnu, Hara is Mahadeva, Shiva. Apparently they have entirely different characteristics, but they are very, very close to each other. They are supplementary, complementary to each other. So Swami Brahmananda Rakhal and Swami Vivekananda Narain, they were childhood friends, even before they came to Ramakrishna. They used to wrestle together, used to the gym together, hit the gym also. And when they came to Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna trained both of them in two different ways. Swami Vivekananda knew that Rakhal would never take up this responsibility as long as he was alive. Suddenly he just decided to go. What a blow it should have been. And Swamiji was so much drawn to Rakhal, he knew that Rakhal wouldn't bear Swami Vivekananda's passing away. So he told Rakhal, why don't you go to Calcutta? There is some work pending there. He sent him away to Calcutta. And because if Rakhal had been at Belur Math, Swamiji would not have passed away. He just can't bring himself to taking his spirit away from the body in the presence of Rakhal. There is a very touching incident. Swamiji was so desperately ill. He couldn't even walk. He couldn't even turn on sides in the bed. Every limb of the body was paining terribly. Swami Brahmananda became so upset. He used to shed tears alone and said, what's going to happen to Swamiji? Is he going to live or is he going to pass away? Suddenly Brahmananda heard, oh, Swamiji is taking a walk. And he was delighted. Oh, Swamiji is taking a walk. He has turned the corner. He will now survive. You know what Swamiji said? He was putting his hand on Sharatchandra Chakravarti, his disciple, and slowly limping. And he says, you see, I just can't put my foot one step forward. What pain I'm feeling you do not know. You know why I'm slowly walking? This is Rakhal. All the time he is depressed and shedding tears about my health. If he came to know that I had walked even one step, he would be delighted. Just to give some joy to Rakhal, I have not undertaken this tremendous, excruciating exercise. So look at the love they had for each other. Swami Vivekananda knew that he can't pass away when Rakhal was in Belur Math. So he sent away Rakhal and quickly escaped. Rakhal came to know Swamiji passed away. That was a shock which everybody felt. Miss Josephine McLeod writes, they got a cablegram. Swami attained nirvana. They were stunned. Tears flowed down their cheeks for days upon end, till she came across a line from Maeterlinck, the famous literature, in which he said, if you love somebody, show it by your action and not by your tears. She never wept again. Swami Ashokananda writes, decades after Swamiji's passing away, when I visited Belur Math, the shock of Swamiji's passing away could be palpably felt in the atmosphere of Belur Math. Swamiji passed away. The mission had just been formed. He formed the mission in 1999, formally registered the trust deed in 1901. Within a year, he passed away. Rakhal was totally unprepared. Swami Vivekananda is taking care of everything. He was absorbed in samadhi. And now, the entire mantle had to fall upon Rakhal. Sri Ramakrishna chose him as the leader. Rakhal has Rajbuddhi. He had the wisdom of a king. He can rule a kingdom. Immediately Swami Vivekananda picked it up. One sentence, casual sentence which Ramakrishna uttered. Picked it up, told the other disciples, come on, from tomorrow we'll call him Raja. He is called Raja Maharaj. And what a majestic gait with which he walked. Swami Vivekananda and Swami Brahmananda, when they used to walk together, they always imagine in their mind's eye, Belur Math, they must be having long walks and discussing the problems of the order. The majestic gait with which they walked. When Swamiji was in Paris, the waiter in the hotel used to call him Prince. Swamiji said, I'm not a prince, I'm a Hindu yogi. I'm a monk. Don't tell me that. I have been dealing with princes and rajas all my life. Just by seeing one I can spot. Swami Brahmananda also, so majestic. There's a story about Swami Brahmananda. Swami Abhedananda was about to leave for the West. They gave a farewell to Abhedananda and they want to have a group photograph. Furniture is very meager in that time at Belur Math. Only one good chair was available. They put a chair for Swami Abhedananda because he was leaving. All the others will stand near him and then have a photograph. Swami Brahmananda came sufficiently early for the photograph. Seeing the only chair available, he assumed it is for himself and sat there. That is Raja. He was the king. If one chair is available, who else it should be for except him? That natural gait of the Raja, nobody dare tell him, no, it is not, sir, it is not for you, please get up. Nobody dare tell him. He sat there majestically. That photograph is still there. And the description is given below. So Swami Brahmananda always absorbed in samadhi, but he couldn't afford the luxury of samadhi anymore. He had to deal with problems, he had to deal with so many things, and the mission had just begun. Swami Vivekananda, remember, started the Ramakrishna Mission the 1st of May 1897 in Calcutta in Balaram Bose's house. And the just deed he registered in 1901 was the Ramakrishna Math. So he did not formalize the mission at all. So it was Swami Brahmananda with the help of Swami Sharadananda who formalized the Ramakrishna Mission and registered the Ramakrishna Mission as a society in 1901, in 1909. Brahmananda thought about the whole thing, how the whole structured. He had such a powerful administrative ability, so the luxury of samadhi he had to forego many times. But still the pull of the infinite was so powerful, he couldn't bring himself to taking his mind down to put his mind on ordinary things. See, this is the greatness of these administrators, the earlier administrators, not people like us. They were administering directly by the command of God. If there is a problem, what is the solution? Simple. Go to God and ask Him, what should be the solution? Do this. God says, and you do it, that's all. You remember the incident, Swami Prabhavanandaji, when he was Abani, he was a brahmachari. Brahmananda told him, bring the almanac. I am going to find out an auspicious day to leave Madras. This brahmachari was laughing derisively. Oh, Maharaj, you will call for this date, but you will never follow it. You will keep on changing the dates. Then Brahmananda became serious. Do you mean to say I do anything on my own? Then this brahmachari was all audacious because he loved him so much. Whose will do you follow? I follow the will of God. Then Abani asks him, oh, it is very easy to imagine one's own will is the will of God. How do you know the will of God? The startling reply for Swami Brahmananda. Why? I talk to God and find out what is His will. What do you say for this? If somebody says, I talk to God and find out what is His will, you can't, it absolutely floored. You can't say anything to this. Every one of his actions and administration was directly guided by God. Not only the will of God, he directly appeared to the direct disciples, do this and don't do that. You remember the story of the compilation of Swami Brahmananda of the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna? That is the most authentic compilation of Ramakrishna's teachings. Sri Ramakrishna Upadesh, compiled by Swami Brahmananda. Once he was compiling, writing something, Sri Ramakrishna appeared and said, Are Rakhal, I didn't say this. Change it to this. So he changed. So I always funnily think, Ramakrishna's teachings, compiled by Swami Brahmananda and edited by Sri Ramakrishna. That's what it is. This is all recorded. Recorded by disciples who are skeptics. Recorded by people who are very rational in their approach. So what do you say for this? Swami Shuddhananda, Sudhir, was the assistant secretary. Swamiji made him assistant secretary. He was a taskmaster. Minutes of the meetings have to be held, report should be prepared, circulated everywhere. He went to Swami Brahmananda and said, Maharaj, you have to sign a legal document to be circulated all over the place and to all the heads of centers. Oh, is it so? Yeah, I should do that. Not today, I'm not feeling well. Tomorrow I will do it. Today, tomorrow, he never signed it. Then with a tinge of irritation, Shuddhanji told him, Maharaj, please sign, it is getting a little late. How is it so? Where should I sign? He got the pen. And then, please sign here. He put the pen to paper, didn't sign. Maharaj, please sign. Like an innocent child, he said, I don't remember my name. Tears will come to you when you read it. Are they men? Are they gods? Are they human beings? Godly people in the human form, they came only to redeem us. Remember this. It is not easy for people, men of God, to sacrifice the realization, absorption in God for the sake of redemption of society or humanity. Sheer compassion pulled them down. Sudhir, I can't remember my name. That he had a farm or a name he couldn't remember. Remember the incident in Swami Vivekananda's life? Swamiji used to pace up and down. There was a huge mirror. Swamiji looked at the mirror and then again walked out. Then one of us said, I was trying to find out whether he had any weakness at all. Now I have found out. This man is so proud of his being so handsome. Then Swamiji immediately turned. You see, I can't remember that I have a body, so now and then I look at myself in the mirror. Their minds were always perched in that. Paratatve sadalino Ramakrishna Sampradaya yo dharma sthapanarato viresham tam namamyaham. That is the pranam mantra. His mind was Paratatva, the supreme truth, Sadalina, always absorbed in the supreme truth, but the command of his master, he came down from that and then helped everybody. Swami Shivananda, constantly talking to God. On one occasion he said at Belur Math, in the veranda he is sitting there, you have the mango tree in front. Then Shivananda said, you see, so much spiritual power is accumulated in this body by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna. If I tell this tree, get liberated this moment, this tree will pass through millions of lives and get into this supreme realization. A tree can be liberated by a mere will. He demonstrated it. Swami Vivekananda was Pashupati Maharaj, who first started the movement in South America, Argentina. We had the good fortune to meet some of these great Swamis. Because we were in Madras, we were students at that time. I was 15, 16 years old. And most of these Swamis who came from South or North America, anywhere in the world, they have to pass through Madras. Belur Math and Madras Math. Because Shashananda was the training center at that time. Anybody who had to be trained in spiritual life or monastic life was sent to Shashi, 3 years at Shashi. Rigorous training. Brahmananda used to send them. So Pashupati Maharaj reminiscences we heard from his own mouth. He was about to leave. In those days, to arrange the logistics was not easy. They had to go by ship, and the ship will go after 6 months. The frequency was very less. Swami Shuddhananda arranged everything so perfectly. So before leaving, he goes to Mahapurush Maharaj Swami Shivananda and then says that I am going to leave for Argentina. I have been sent there. I looked at him. Cancel this trip. Then said, no, I can't go and tell Shuddhananda, he will beat me with a stick. With so much difficulty he has arranged everything. What? Who is Shuddhananda? Give me a piece of paper. We heard it from him. Shivananda writes, Pashupati is going to Argentina, is temporarily cancelled by the Lord's orders. Shivananda, go and give it to him. He says, I spoke to God, spoke to Ramakrishna, I said, don't send him now. The ship by which he was going got drowned. So what do you say for all this? So why I am saying this, it's already time. So you need the whole night for talking about these people. See, these people were not ordinary men. They were godly beings, they were divine beings, they were commissioned by God, and God brought them down for our sake. And they had to sacrifice the highest realization so that they can help us to have a taste of that realization. And they were just the other day, it is not far away, just the other day. His disciples, we have seen his disciples are available. Swami Sahananda was the disciple of Swami Vivekanandaji. Just the other day it happened. And these people were directly communing with God and constantly getting his command, and Sri Ramakrishna constantly protecting the Sangha even now. I will end with a small anecdote. Swami Premananda, as you know, was a man of great heart, particularly for the poor people. He was in charge of Belur Math as a manager. Pumpkin was grown, Belur Math garden. Pumpkin is a huge vegetable. Swami Premananda called one of the employees, maybe the gardener, hey, take this, now cook and eat, enjoy. So that fellow was so happy, he was carrying it in his head. Swami Brahmananda saw him from a distance. Called Premananda, Baburamda, if we give away all the things of the ashrama, of the mutt to anybody and everybody, how can the ashram be run? Premananda was cut to quick. What? I am the manager? I have no right to give away a pumpkin to a person? Is it the kind of authority that I possess? I will not stay at Belur Math, walk away. He was extremely emotional. He is about to walk away through the small gate at Belur Math. Suddenly he found somebody is pulling him back with a towel. He said, oh, no, I will not leave. Then he saw Ramakrishna says, Hare Baburam, I am here. Where are you going leaving me? Now this is the incident recorded. Now my interpretation, explanation of this. Two Brahmagya Purushas, men of God, absorbed in Brahman, Ishvara Kotis to boot, were quarreling over a pumpkin. And Sri Ramakrishna had to come personally to intervene and solve this problem. I talked about this one of the monk conferences at Belur Math. And I said, if two Brahmagya Purushas and two Ishvara Kotis quarreling over a pumpkin, for which Ramakrishna had to personally intervene and solve the problem, will he not come now when we have so many other important problems? We believe, and it is true, that Sri Ramakrishna even now is looking after every bit of the affairs of the Sangha, the great Sampradaya, and guiding it at every stage. Have no doubt about this. Because if we had to solve a pumpkin problem of two Ishvara Kotis, he has to solve much bigger problems of all of us. And he is watching over us like a compassionate mother, at every point guiding our steps. Sometimes we slightly misbehave, giving us a tight slap on the cheek. Swami Premananda writes to Abhedanandaji. Abhedananda stayed back in the West for a long time, didn't want to go back to India. A very touching letter Premananda writes to him, as commanded by the Holy Mother Sharada Devi. He writes, I read this letter to the mother, and with the approval of the Holy Mother, I am sending it to you. He writes there, Kali, his name was Kali, as you know. Do you remember what Sri Ramakrishna used to say? He used to say, all of you are monkeys in my army. When he came as Ramachandra, all of us had tails. In this incarnation, the tail alone is missing. So Ramakrishna said, you are all monkeys in my army, and I am the leader of you monkeys. And the rope is in my hand. If you slightly misbehave, I'll pull the rope and give you tight slaps in your cheeks. So now and then sometimes he gives us some slaps. And we weep, oh Lord, why are you doing this to me? Out of compassion, like the kind mother. The child is playing too much, it will not eat, it will not study. Come, study. And when the child cries too much, the mother hugs. And then says, oh, why did I do that? That's the love play. So Ramakrishna even now is watching over us and continuously, constantly, absolutely guiding every one of the movements of this order. This great Sampradaya. And all of us are extraordinarily fortunate. To say we are fortunate is an understatement. We do not know what great merit we have done to deserve this, to have been sucked into this. Swami Prabhavananda in many lectures used to quote Christ, Jesus Christ. Christ used to say, ye have not chosen me, I have chosen you. So all of us have been chosen by God to come here. And Christ also used to say, many are called, but only a few are chosen. So we have been specially chosen by God to come into the Sampradaya, and we do not have to do anything. Just be absorbed in this great Sampradaya and the Sangha, and have some amount of faith in the glory of Sri Ramakrishna and his great disciples, Sharada Devi and others. Just be here. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, M records it. M says, Ramakrishna always used to tell me, just think of me, that is enough. Whatever sadhana is required to be done by you, I will get it done. And whoever thinks of me shall inherit my wealth, even as a son or a daughter inherits the father's wealth. And he adds, do you know what is his wealth? His wealth is jnana bhakti, viveka vairagya, shanti sukha, prema and samadhi. The entire wealth of Sri Ramakrishna is ours. He says, why do you struggle, my child? All the wealth is yours. A child of a multi-billionaire goes to the father, Father, give me a check for $1,000. And immediately the check is written. Oh, my father is so compassionate. Are you a fool? Father feels so sad. My entire $1 billion wealth is yours. You ask for $1,000. So don't be like a beggar asking this and that of Ramakrishna. His entire wealth is yours. Only you have to prove that you are his son, you are his daughter. The succession certificate. Legally, you need a succession certificate to be able to inherit the wealth. That succession certificate, do you know where it is? When you got initiated by the Guru with the mantra, there the Guru says he has come to the Sampradaya. And that, the signature of the Guru is preserved. And if somebody challenges you, then you show it. You see, this is a certificate. If you don't give me my wealth, I will sue you. Ramprasad said, oh mother, if you don't save me, after having signed a covenant and an agreement, I will sue you in Mahadeva's court, in the court of Shiva, and immediately get an injunction. Don't push me too far. So these are some of the sentiments which we have. And be sure of this, if Ramakrishna does not save us, he will get a bad name. And therefore, to save himself, he has to save us. This is Ramprasad's take. Ramprasad said, oh mother, I will call on you and then die ultimately. But to save your own good name, you have to save me. Because people would say, oh, don't call on Durga. You see, the Ramprasad whole life he called on Durga. Durga never cared. And in Hinduism, unfortunately or fortunately, there's a lot of competition among gods. If Durga doesn't save you, you go to Kali. Kali doesn't save you, you go to Ganesha. In other religions, you have only one god to go to. So in Hinduism, gods are extremely careful to keep their flock together. So Ramakrishna has to be extremely careful, otherwise he'll walk away to go to somebody else. It is not my statement. Ramakrishna himself said that in the Gospel. He tells the Divine Mother Kali, Mother, give them some realization. Otherwise, why should they come? They may walk away. Some interim relief, some interim realization you give them. So he knows to keep them in his flock. Out of compassion, he'll give us the highest realization in his own time. Let us not be impatient. We know what we deserve. We deserve nothing, but still it is given. Swami Atmapriyananda went to Swami Brahmananda and said, Maharaj, if you think I'm fit for sannyas, would you please bless me with sannyasa? Maharaj smiled and said, my child, nobody is fit for sannyas, but I shall give you sannyas. It is just given undeserved. And therefore let us wait patiently at his door, cry, weep, smile, quarrel, and grace shall descend. Om Tat Sat.